What latest from Kiev? What's going on right now?
The government does not want reinforcements coming to the Maidan. There was no Sturm, no assault last night. The government has taken buildings next to the Maidan. Well, it took one is on fire. More people were killed, but there is a kind of neutral zone between the militia and the Maidan at the moment. 2 armoured vehicles were used, but not the regular army. The regime can, and quite easily could be, more violent. But there was the statement by 2 of Ukraine's biggest oligarchs last night, Rinat Akhmetov and Viktor Pinchuk, condemning the use of force. Maybe that is a factor worrying the regime. European foreign ministers will probably meet tomorrow. Whether they will finally act on sanctions is another question. But yeah, this is a nasty regime with a mafia logic. Having begun this process, it will probably want to continue it.
What's the way out of this crisis?
Well, the protests erupted because the regime was not allowing the proper debate in Parliament yesterday. Some people may try again today to have a debate on a new government or a new constitution. The opposition leaders met Yanukovych in the small hours overnight. Nothing. In fact, he, by all accounts, threatened them and demanded total surrender. Compromise is possible if it looks too difficult for the government to clear the square, and if there is external pressure.
Do you think that that the opposition could accept the offer of Mr. Yanukovych to be part of this government and to distinguish themselves from the, like Yanukovych said, radical forces who wants to damage to the so-called democratic principle in Ukraine?
Well, there are 3 parliamentary parties. The one in the middle, UDAR, will not join a government unless it has more power, unless the constitution is changed. The most moderate party, Batkivstina, Fatherland, even they are very, very reluctant. It would be pointless they would just lose authority if they joined government as a fig leaf without real power. And real power means control over the Siloviki, standing down the Berkut and the militia and other things. So quite rightly, the opposition doesn't want to join a fake government.
Andrew, how do you explain that?
Well, it's been brewing for some time. People have been on the street since the 21st of November. Ironically, there were plans to have demonstrations even before the 21st of November, because it was 10 years since the Orange Revolution back in 2004. Really, this crisis has been brewing since the autumn of 2010. Yanukovych may have been a fairly elected president, but when he took extra power in an unconstitutional coup d'etat in October 2010, and then used that power to enrich himself and his friends, trouble has been brewing ever since then.
What do you think, why Russia is so important for Yanukovych, despite the mood of the people? I mean, it's obvious that the people of Ukraine wants to go towards West.
Yanukovych wants to survive. He wants to survive without changing his authoritarian political system or his corrupt economic system. Russia is happy to support both, whereas engagement with the West would mean changing all of that.
How do you see the development of the situation in Kiev and in Ukraine overall in the next 24 hours?
Well, nightfall today will be the big test. If the government attacks the Maidan again, its natural instinct is definitely to use more force to arrest people. But even if they clear the Maidan, that's not the end of the story. Even in Kiev, people will protest elsewhere. In fact, artificially suppress the number of protesters at the moment because, as I say, the metro is closed. People are hoping for reinforcements to arrive by bus or whatever, and they will. Even if the government has a short-term victory in the Maidan, trouble will continue in Kiev.
Do you think that the protesters are scary, having in mind that 25 people are dead in the last? I mean,
yes, of course, but not scared enough to give up.
there was, yeah.
I mean, it sounds a really bizarre thing to say, but for authoritarian regimes, there is such a thing as the wrong amount of violence. If you kill a few people, you anger the rest of the population. You have to kill a lot, as China did in Tiananmen Square, really, to suppress and cow people. People are in this for the long run.
Do you think that the protests are going to spread in other cities in Ukraine?
They already have in the West. The government's militia is not actually that numerous. When it concentrates power in Kiev, it leaves itself. The other key battleground is what's called the soft east. Not Donbass, not the Crimea, but the kind of areas of the country where people want to protest. The government is less hardline, and it tends to use these thugs, titushki, against protesters. So there you're going to have a war between the titushki and protesters, rather than militia and protesters.
You're using the word militia, not police.
It's a militia, you're talking armed guys with rubber bullets, allegedly real bullets. This is well, it's called a militia anyway. It hasn't had a name change like in Russia. The army is more reluctant to be dragged into all of this, and although the government abandoned its plans to join NATO in 2010, the country had been cooperating with NATO armed forces for a long time before then, and that had some effect on sort of westernising some of the armed forces officer class.